It is not a very controversial statement to say that Nintendo is a very quirky company. The games industry would be very boring without them pushing through and trying new, weird things each generation. Not all of them succeed. For every Wii remote, we have a Wii Speak. For every Game Boy, we get a Wii U Gamepad. But Nintendo seems to have a few gimmicks that just stick as favorites of theirs. Of course, the motion control is a very popular example. The Joy-Cons today still contain the motion controls of the Wii remote. 3D was another gimmick that Nintendo tried to attempt for a couple decades. The Famicom had a 3D accessory, then they released the Virtual Boy, and then they attempted to do 3D with the GBA and GameCube before finally getting to work with the 3DS. But one gimmick that Nintendo has that's stuck for all these years for some reason are cameras. Yeah, this is odd, but most of Nintendo's handhelds and systems these days have a camera. Hell, the Switch technically has a camera, but we're gonna get to that later. Everyone seems to want to focus on looking at these cameras in short bursts of, wow, look at the quality of this camera, it's really bad. But that's not really giving these cameras enough credit. So let's go one by one through all of Nintendo's attempts at putting cameras on game consoles and discuss them. Of course, the very first attempt at a camera in Nintendo's history was the Gameboy Camera in 1998. This was a weird looking Game Boy cartridge that had a digital camera attached at the top. It was released in multiple colors, but I personally have the blue one. The camera itself was actually the world's smallest digital camera at the time of its 1998 release. This was before the days of modern cameras being as small as they are, obviously, but it's still a decently small camera today. Now, how did they get that size in 1998 for a low price? Well, the camera quality leaves a little to be desired. The camera has a 128 by 128 pixel CMOS sensor. For reference of how small that image is, that's around the same pixel size of Discord emojis. And because most Game Boys were in black and white in 1998, the camera only takes photos in 4 shades of gray. So, this looks quite rough. However, the Game Boy Camera had a lot of personality and charm to it. This camera may have only had 4 shades of gray and 128 pixels to work with, but Nintendo made the most out of it. Actually, this camera was developed by Game Freak and Creatures. So basically, the Pokemon guys developed the Game Boy Camera. That's whack. This camera is filled to the brim with charm. It has minigames that will let you put you or your other's faces in the game, make simple animations, a strange panorama function, among other things. I decided to shove a Game Boy Camera into my Game Boy and bring it to school with me when I was still in high school, and take some pictures throughout the day. People were very much instantly gravitated towards it. The concept of a manky old camera running off a Game Boy seemed to amuse my peers, especially with a major accessory for the Game Boy itself, the Gameboy Printer. The printer accessory for the Game Boy allowed you to plug it into your Game Boy via a link cable and let you print certain things from games. Like, for example, in the Pokemon trading card game for Game Boy Color, you could print out your Pokemon card. The printer uses a similar technology to receipt paper, so there's no ink, just very specifically sized thermal receipt paper. The Game Boy Camera actually supported this accessory for the sake of printing out your amazing photos with the camera. And, well, you're not really gonna be printing out your prom photos with this, unless your name is Melany. But this is a really cute novelty. My friends and I decided it was a really funny thing for me to take photos of dumb internet memes and print them out on the printer.
There it is!
So you know what, Nintendo? I'll give it to y'all. This really was photography. That's 1 point for marketing. I would honestly recommend picking one up if you can find one for a decent price and are interested in retro game collecting stuff. It's really a fun novelty. Following the Game Boy Camera, Nintendo attempted to do a GameCube camera with a canceled game called Stage Debut. All we really know about it is that it would have allowed you to use a camera to import pictures of faces into the game and interact with them in the game. From my best guess, this seems like it would be something based on the idea of using your face in Game Boy Camera minigames, but alas, it was cancelled. We wouldn't get another Nintendo camera until the reign of the Nintendo DS. I'm sure you're probably assuming it's the Nintendo DSi camera, right? Well, exclusively in Japan, we have the Facing Scan camera released with the Japanese game Facing de Hai. Oh my god, how do I pronounce this? Hold on.
フェイセニング度表情豊かに印象アップ大人の DS 顔トレーニング
Whatever, it's known in English as face training. So, what was the point of this accessory? Well, it wasn't for photography, it was mainly marketed towards women in Japan. Basically, the core idea of it was to relax and tone the user's facial muscles with the purpose of training for a smaller, more feminine face, as that's seen as more desirable in Japanese culture. Something about this seems wrong to me. The camera itself would plug into the DS's GBA slot and pop out of the frame to track your face. I couldn't find any claims about the picture resolution of the camera, but on my usage of the camera, it's actually pretty solid quality. Not amazing, but I've seen far worse. And we're going to see far, far worse. This game would eventually get a DSi exclusive version, while also being localized for a European release. Speaking of the DSi camera. Now this is where I start getting some nostalgia. I grew up on this exact DSi XL system. This even has some of the pictures I took growing up. The DSi and DSi XL feature two cameras, one on the front, one on the back, and they are in a glorious 0.3 megapixel VGA quality. Yeah, it's not quite a looker in my opinion. However, the resolution is actually larger than the screen resolution of the DSi itself. This is for the perks regarding the software. So you do of course have the option and ability to take pictures using either camera. However, the big fun things here are the extra filters and goodies you can apply. In the world of Snapchat filters and Photoshop and even your iPhone's markup tool, nothing here seems mind-blowing, but for the time and to a young child with only a DSi, this is fucking amazing. You can play with distortion effects, draw on the image, add frames, and it's all done with a really fun, cute presentation that's really satisfying. It even allows you to post your photos online to Facebook. At least at the time. This is an extremely fun and quirky, enjoyable application that I so wish got more appreciation. The following system, the 3DS, only added upon what was here. The 3DS family systems had 3 cameras, one front-facing and 2 rear-facing. Well, these days on modern phones, you have multiple camera sensors for multiple different angles and zooms. On the 3DS, the second rear-facing camera is there for 3D photos and stuff like AR. Because on the 3DS, you can take 3D photos. I genuinely can't tell the difference between a 3D and 2D photo on 3DS. I don't get it. But in terms of actually good things in the 3DS, we have the addition of a video camera. I loved this as a child. I'd film all sorts of stuff on my 3DS. This was genuinely amazing. The camera quality did kind of suck though, albeit as a kid, you don't mind. The 3DS shot video in 640 by 480 with a 0.3 megapixel VGA sensor. That obviously blows a lot, but this wasn't exactly meant to be a serious digital camera. This was a toy for young kids, and honestly, I loved it so much as a kid. I remember I'd film little videos and skits with my brothers, or point the 3DS camera at my computer monitor and film Minecraft Let's Plays.
Minecraft video, and today I'm going to just give a little tour around my amazing Minecraft world.
Another thing you could do with the 3DS camera is to make stop motion videos. Again, nothing crazy here, this is indeed just a toy here, but for teaching kids the basic of stop motion and stop motion animation, this is fantastic. I can envision a lot of kids, like me growing up, who watch a lot of YouTube and wants to do YouTube sketches and videos in some capacity. And with this 3DS camera, these kids could do that and learn how to make videos. This camera application was absolutely fantastic. While the DSi and Gameboy camera will always have a special place in my heart, the 3DS line will always have the best Nintendo camera setup. This camera application helped fuel my love and desire to make videos on my own. These days, in the era of everyone owning smartphones and iPads and stuff like this is easily accomplished with apps like iMovie, but in a world before everyone had a phone in their pocket, this was really, really cool. Following the 3DS cameras was the Wii U Gamepad and its front-facing camera. Honestly, there's not much to say. Some games would let you put your face in the game, but outside of that, the Wii U didn't have a proper camera app. Instead, the camera out of the box would be used to scan your face and make a me out of your face. And that didn't even really work well, let's be honest. So that's it, huh? The Nintendo Switch launched in 2017 with no camera in sight. And as a result, no more Nintendo cameras? Nope! The right Toy-Con, the system, features something called an IR camera. That's a camera! It counts! Nintendo Switch Joy-Con. You've been hiding a camera from me all this time! This is the Nintendo Switch IR camera. This is mostly used for some of Nintendo's more gimmicky games, like 1-2 Switch to measure stuff like depth or shape. However, there is a third-party application on the eShop you can buy called Night Vision Camera. They'll let you use the IR camera as an honest-to-God camera. Let's check it out. Holy fuck. Yeah, I can't get too mad at this because it's obviously not the purpose of the Joy-Con camera, but wow, this is charmingly abysmal. Like, can y'all even make out what some of this is supposed to be? Outside of this, it's mostly used in certain games to measure depth. Recently, the Nintendo Switch port of Trombone Champ uses the IR camera, which why? And yeah, that was the history of Nintendo's cameras. Obviously, as I said earlier, there is next to no reason for these cameras to exist anymore in a world of smartphones and iPads and stuff like that. If we take a step back and look at the landscape a little more, this stuff is really charming. I have so much nostalgia for the DSi and 3DS camera apps, and I am really sad that stuff like this doesn't really exist anymore beyond smart devices and some cheap toys online. But regardless, I hope someone enjoyed this weird look at the quirky side of Nintendo's past. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and hopefully I'll even see you next time. Bye bye.